So here we see the basic environment we are operating in. We have one cloud. In our case, it's Helion OpenStack. Inside that cloud, we have one already existing virtual machine. We call it the jump box. The only purpose for the jump box is to allow us to SSH into VMs inside internal networks. We also have the server installed, the Catena server, which provides a REST API to the user interface. The user interface is running on the user laptop at the moment. And just to warn you, it's a prototype, so it's not pretty. But we can eventually, hopefully, switch it out with a nice looking web interface. We also have a small database. I'm using a development environment here, so I'm using SQLite. But since we are using SQL Alchemy as an abstraction layer, we can switch it out for different databases if we want to. So in the first step, we are making a REST API call from the user interface to the Catena server, and we want to tell the server to create a new blockchain. So you'll see the interface here. We say create a new blockchain. We give it a name. We select the cloud in which we want to install this. I have the clouds already pre-configured. I will show in a separate video how to configure them. Then we choose the blockchain backend. At the moment we only support Ethereum. The plan is to support much more Hyperledger, maybe R3 Corda in the future. And we need to select the blockchain type. So Ethereum can be installed in various different ways, one of which uses proof of work. Another option which we are currently implementing is proof of authority or permissioned blockchains. So we select proof of work, and in the next step we need to enter the account to which all the mining rewards will be sent. We use MetaMask. MetaMask is a Chrome plugin for managing Ethereum accounts. Just copy and paste the account address and hit OK. Next we need to choose the flavor for the initial controller, select the network we want to deploy in, and we need to select the jump box. We only have one at the moment, and give it the SSH key so we can SSH into the jump box. So, just to visualize what we've done so far. Step 1 was make the REST API call, and then step 2, the Catena server stores all the configuration and metadata in the database. It also creates an SSH key, which we are going to use later when we create a virtual machine. And it stores all of that in the database. In step 3, it talks to OpenStack Nova to create a virtual machine. And in step 4, it runs a couple of Ansible deployment scripts. Those scripts deploy a dashboard, and it also installs the initial Ethereum client. So we are finished doing that. It usually takes a lot longer than what I show here in the video. So let's have a look at what got created here. We have a new blockchain called Demo. And if we go to OpenStack Horizon, we see that there now is a new instance called Demo Controller. In order to access it, we need to give it a floating IP. And we deliberately choose to do the networking manually in the user interface. We don't provide that as part of Catena because all different users will have different network configurations, and we don't want to limit the user. So we leave it up to the user to decide how to set up the network. So now that we have a floating IP, we can access it and we can have a look onto the controller. And we see the dashboard shows one node, one Ethereum node. It's a non-mining node. We use this only to get information about the blockchain. And therefore we also don't have any blocks. We see that the current block count is at 0. So there isn't too much going on. So what we want to do next is we want to create an Ethereum node that is actually mining. For that we need to go back to the Catena user interface and we'll make another REST API call to the Catena server. So we say add node. We choose the type, currently only have miners here, and we choose the flavor, give it a name, and that's it, off we go. So what's going to happen here is, again, the Catena server creates SSH keys and stores all the configuration and metadata in the database. Then it creates another virtual machine for the miner. And it starts Ansible deployment scripts that install the Ethereum node onto the miner. If we go back to the dashboard, we see that we now have 2 Ethereum clients connected to the blockchain. There isn't much going on yet because the miner takes a while to initialize all the in-memory data structures. But what eventually will happen is that the 2 nodes will connect to each other and they will start creating blocks. In order to connect to the blockchain, we need to know the parameters with which we can connect. We try to make this connectivity part very simple. So Catena offers a functionality which just exports a couple of configuration files and scripts that can then be used in various other tools and programs to connect them to our existing blockchain. So we'll export. We need to tell it how to find the blockchain. So we need to give it an IP address to which it can connect to, and luckily we already have a floating IP on our controller. So we enter that and it writes the scripts into a directory. So exit out of the user interface, cd into the directory, and we see a couple of scripts and files here. The one we want to use is the run get script, which runs a local Ethereum client on the laptop and connects it to our blockchain in the cloud. So I'm running it here. Since I'm using MetaMask as an account manager, I need to give it the MetaMask Chrome ID, which I can find in Chrome. Copy paste. And it starts the local Ethereum client. It starts to import the blockchain and it says sync complete. So now our local client is connected to the blockchain. So our final picture looks like this. We now have a mining get client on the user laptop as well. And it connects to the controller node, which runs a get client, which then connects to the mining node, which also runs a get client. So we have 3 clients in total, 2 of which run in the cloud, 1 runs on the laptop. And we see this here in the dashboard. You see that the peer count is 2. Now we don't see the client that runs on the laptop, because it runs outside of the cloud, so it cannot access the dashboard. But we do see that each of the other clients is connected to 2 more clients. So we see that there must be a third one. And now we can point MetaMask to our local GET client on the laptop. So let's send a transaction. Let's send 55 Ether to another account. And we see that there is a transaction and it got processed correctly. So that's it. That's a quick overview over Catena. The next steps would probably be to deploy a smart contract and then start using that smart contract. And I will probably cover that in another video.